Museveni yabadde amanyi biwedde kumbe tebinnaba byabadde bitandika butandisi kati nno zino ensonga za march to parliament the Gen.Z bagamba nedda ssebo byatandise butandisi era kati okulangirira okulala so okulabe ensonga eziriwo abannayuganda nti bo tebagenda kulekeraawo paka nga eno ensonga ate etuuse ku ntolo.
Being referred to as the Uber KFC iPhone generation. In other words, they bring nothing to the table. So are we at a time now when that innocence has ended and the Gen Zs, if we may refer to them that way, have come of age, and that some of these references need to end? Go ahead, Jackie.
Thank you, Robert. So I think that the patronizing, especially the patronizing that Museveni does, is layered. So first of all, we have to speak to the first layer, which is a contestation of, how old he is and his overstaying power. And so to counter that, I think that part of the PR is to infantilize the majority of Ugandans who are, born. Well, we were born before. I guess he was president before even our parents thought about conceiving us. Like, that idea in itself is just bizarre when you think about it.
Yeah.
Now, so on that layer, what Museveni does is to go to the endearing terms, because within Uganda culture, very social culture, is that we do respect older people, and it's not uncommon for an older person to call you grandchild, or even to make reference to you that way, whether you're related in kinship, family ties or not. And so to tap into that narrative, and we see the ways in which it's not just Museveni. We see the ways in which the first lady as well is called Mama. Like you hear people in parliament addressing her as such. And what that does to the power is that it already strips out the roles that people are supposed to play. So Museveni is a president, and he's probably someone's grandfather. He has tons of them. But at the end of the day, when we take away the political role, that also takes away accountability. Because within Ugandan culture, a lot of the narrative is you don't question your elders. And then we see how then Museveni, within his grandfatherness, takes on that role as well. The condescending, responses to young people saying anything, and that condescension also then takes on a political role. It takes on a policy role too, and it also takes on an infrastructural role, because if you have a president who does not respect the people that he quote unquote is supposed to be, rule, is supposed to, I guess, govern in a way. I don't think that that's what he does. But let's speak for the sake of what he's supposed to do according to Ugandan law. And what that does is to create a culture of incompetence, but also a culture of condescension. And it also creates a hierarchy, because it's very difficult to approach someone who is supposed to be in a political role as a grandfather, because then that relationship is completely changed.
Yeah.
And then media comes in and media normalizes it, because then we have the jokes of grandfather or abazukulu or and so when media normalizes the abnormal, we can end up with the kind of insanity that we have, that people are unable to hold the president accountable, but also the infrastructure that is supposed to do that cannot do that, because we are somehow turned into like a little Museveni kingdom, where his son then becomes, is responsible for the army. The wife then becomes responsible for Ministry of Education, relatives become. So in the sense, when Museveni calls us bazukulu or grandchildren, he's speaking within the ways in which he has managed to, covert power that way, that we just become a small kingdom that is under the impression that we are somehow a democratic government, or even something remotely to that. So for me, I think that not only do we, as media practitioners, as writers, as researchers, as young people, or as just people in general, need to make a distinction between the ways in which we normalize the abnormal. And and I think specifically media here, that then we take what Museveni says as the truth, and not necessarily, we don't question whether it's a fact or not. And I think that a lot of that is very deliberate PR or very deliberate political maneuvers that Museveni has done, that then we move away from holding him accountable for being, one, the violence that he visits upon young people, but also just the ways that the state of the state in itself. So I think that a lot of the patronized, the infantilization that happens and starts from endearment terms that then is normalized, it somehow seeps into political accountability, that now we are stuck in that loop of grandfather versus grandchildren. Even then it also becomes how media forms narratives. Say Bobby is running for president, the narrative becomes the edge. The narrative becomes, and that takes so much of it takes away from the critique that we are supposed to offer, rather focuses on this very weird, political or social cultural contestation or even contradiction that we are in. So I think that the whole Bazikulu has to end.
Right.
It has to end from the media narratives. It also really has to end from canons in the ways in which we try to make light or jest of things that are not really funny, because I think that then we start to normalize the abnormal, and then we end up in the kind of craziness or even the kind of violence that we are in. We're in a perpetual state of like a violent contract. In fact, it's an abusive relationship, because I think that each time Museveni speaks, it's just to gaslight young people.
Right.
Like nothing of it makes any sense. It's just that the kind of condescending nonsense, or even not nonsense, but the respectability that if a grandparent was saying something that you completely disagree with, you'd be hesitant to simply say, I should move over.
Right.
But and I think that if we start to give the kind of or even the kind of critical thinking or even critical analysis towards these cultural jokes, a lot of if we apply the seriousness that we should, that a president should not be allowed at any moment to call people he has failed for over 30 years as endearment, or even have that level of condescension, then that breeds the kind of seriousness or even the kind of urgency or even agency that we should have towards Ugandan politics.
Right.
That's all.
Thanks, Jackie. I mean, that's quite analytical and gives us a perspective of, all of us just looked at the surface of endearment and had never thought deeply about the dynamics that you present. I was hoping to get Maria in. I have lost her, but I'll get her back in shortly. General, are you about to go? I know it's past 10 o'clock. Do you want to say?
No, we adjusted so you can first run through all the presenters.
Oh, thank you very
I
much.
will adjust the program.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Maria, are you back?
Yes, I am.
So, Maria, you've visited the guys in jail. What did they go through? Tell us.
Let me first start by clarifying. I visited a couple of people in jail yesterday, but there are teams that have been visiting them through the week from Wednesday, from when the first set of people were remanded.
But you've been talking to the teams, so you have a good idea of what's going on. Maria, we've lost you. That's good. Maria, try and reconnect. We've completely dropped your voice. We can hardly hear you. Okay. Maria, if you can hear, you're
comfortable
Maria.
In the can you hear me?
No, we lost you completely. So you have to start at the beginning when you did.
Anna,
Hey, baby beta.
these are the problems of being in Maracha.
What are you doing in
So
What are you doing in Maracha at this time?
we have to go back home to the Lado enclave to remind them that Uganda doesn't like us as a people.
As Zoe has
But
just made your case anyway. She just pointed out when she. Sorry, go on, Maria.
yeah, so I was saying that it's a mix of hope and anxiety, right? Anxiety of when this is going to end, because we know that usually the punishment is the process. If anyone has seen the charge sheets that came from all the the people being remanded, what court has charged them with, you really see these are flimsy charges. But from experience and seeing what we've seen with other activists previously, that the punishment is always the process. Hope is the fact that they are seeing people coming in and visiting them. And I would encourage everybody on this call, make time in the week, go and see these people, because they are part of a wider struggle of something that affects all of us. And I really, really want to thank Azawi for bringing the class analysis into this discussion, showing how corruption affects each one of us on a daily basis, from affecting our basic needs, but also affecting our ability to speak up in public, right? That now, because we have a broken...
Maria, we've lost you again. You've dropped off. Find an anthill in Maracha. Maria, just try and sort out.
They've lost that power of conviction to be able to speak up against corruption. But the hope that these people carry is also that their incarceration, their being arrested and detained by the state, will make the rest of us show up. I know we are sending money. I know we are retweeting. I know we are doing all of these things, and those things are important. But people, there is nothing that supersedes being able to physically show up, right? Physically showing up as a surety, physically showing up on the streets. Because if 5 people, 6 people, 7 people show up in a day, it looks like the rest of you are not concerned about corruption. And I know that there's this narrative that, I will contribute in whatever way that I want to, that I can contribute. You need to ask yourself genuinely if that is the real can that you can contribute. Are you sick? Are you dying? You need to ask yourself, is this the true can, or am I hiding behind this because I do not want to be in the risk of the risk, right? And so for me, it's the hope that people like Biwo, like Timothy, like Abdul, like everybody who has actually gone to jail, Fazia, like all of them are hoping that we will show up. Since what the gentleman of police, of prison said there's space, let's test this space and see how many of us can actually be inside there. And at the end of the day, when we must be able to show these people that what they have shown us and what the sacrifice that they have made is actually our equal response to the problem that we are seeing. That how do we actually show up in a way that causes the people who are convinced that dialogue is supposed to be the way to actually come to the table to dialogue. I don't even know why we need dialogue for corruption, as if we don't know where the corruption is located, and we know that people. You know your relatives who are thieves. Why do you want us to come and talk to them? You talk to them, deal with them at home. We don't have time to be having conversation. Like, what do you want me to talk you out of when it is stealing? Like, you've stolen money. Now you want me to come and tell you, oh dear, please, Bambi, stop stealing money. What? Please. But yes, but aside from that, it's difficult. I won't lie to people. It's difficult. It's mentally draining. And I really like that General Mugisha Muntu talks about being able to build resilience. But it also helps. It has helped many of them that they are in community together, but also hearing from them the other experiences of people in, for example, Kampala remand. While many of us think, oh, I'm safe out here, there are people in Kampala remand who have been picked for things that they don't even know. And are there, they've not had a day in court. And that's part of the problem with corruption, that it's not just about the money, it's the brokenness of the whole system, that people are not getting a fair day in court. I'm in a WhatsApp group where someone who works in the DPP's office really genuinely said that you must do everything to keep your client safe. besides just them having a fair day in court. Imagine a government official says something like that. That shows you like the extent of the brokenness of our system, that the lawyers who are trying to get these people bail could not access them. And yet we have laws, we have the constitution. So when people tell us go to court, like, we know that the courts aren't working for these people. So it's not even only the anti-corruption protesters who are stuck in a broken system. It's people who are picked get my fair day, my fair hearing in court. I must be able to access access to fair justice, that I must be heard, and if I'm going to be convicted, it must be because the system is actually working. We were at Nakawa and the state attorney ran away, like you guys ran away. We entered the gate, she was there, we saw her. People spoke to her. The next thing, we're in court, the woman has run away. What are we supposed to do with that? So when people tell us a fair hearing, when the president says that these are enemies from foreign places who are trying to harm this nation, look at what's happening, Mr. Your Excellency. And you know right from the start, like we know that you know, right? And so for me, it's and just back to answer your question, Robert, specifically, it's a mix of hope. They're also feeling the support because people are visiting them. I'm encouraging everybody here. There is Mark Shonbe prison, there's Kampala Remand, there's the women's prisons. These people are located in these spaces. Let's go there, take things, whether it's in kind, contribute, but also we need bail money and sureties, because we need sureties, because they are going to continue arresting people. If you're here, go and get your LC1 letter, have a copy of your national ID, have your original national ID. People need sureties. Please, if you have a sibling and you're in this protest, please get somebody to get an LC1 letter, because we are going to all need sureties at one point or the other. Because even people who are hosting spaces like Kapshenga, when they pick you, someone is going to need stand surety for you. And for you, it's more complex because you have to have someone who can call you into order. Since they told us that we cannot call old people into order, you have to find other old people to stand surety for you, Kapshenga. And finally, and maybe just to say,
I have General Muntu. He will come for me.
now even him, he has to find a general, but but just finally on the narratives that Jackie talked about, building on a different thing, discourse, and not to and completely appreciating your contribution to this discussion, Robert Kapshenga. Like when you sent out that tweet about people don't dialogue, you have anarchists. We have to be very careful about how we frame the people who are confronting the state, because when words like anarchists are used, when words like extremists are used, we know where this is going. We give the state fuel to be able to clamp down on these people even more. So we have to be really, really careful how we frame these conversations, because narratives are very important. Because when your peers see the word anarchist, what are they seeing? They don't even see the state, which is every day killing us. They are pretending to who have low incomes, people who have the narrative always shifts to blame other people, as opposed to focusing on the people who are killing people through the healthcare system, people who are killing people by keeping them in jail. Someone goes to jail and they've not had a day in court for 7 years. Then Kampala Remand, they have now become prefects in the prison, because there's no hope that they are going to get out, right? And so it's important that we keep the narrative a certain way, that the people who are on the street are the patriotic citizens.
Yeah, I actually take your criticism and accept that I contributed to that narrative. So going forward, I will be more sensitive in the way I frame the things that I put out. So thank you very much for that feedback, Maria.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good. So let me just sort of not wind up, but I'm bringing in Jacob. He's the one who hasn't said a word. Jacob, are you still awake? I'm assuming you are.
Mr. Kabushenga, I'm very much awake. I've just had my cup of coffee and hoping to stay awake longer.
I suspect you're drinking bad coffee from Latin America, but that's okay. We'll send you some good coffee from home. Jacob, you were part of activism, particularly at the professional level with the medical interns and that struggle. What, from your experience, how can people get results?
First of all, I
Assuming
want
you
to.
got results, because I think eventually people were deployed.
Yeah, we did get results, and it looks to me that resistance or counter resistance looks to be the order of the day as we operate, or as you call it, modus operandi in the country. And first of all, I want to say I'm very humbled that you, of very many Ugandans who have come out to participate in this struggle, that you thought I could be able to contribute. And secondly, I am very humbled to be in the company of great minds that have led to significant changes in the country, like General Gregory Mugisha Muntu. So that's where I wanted to start. And secondly, I wanted to paint a picture no- in the health sector, not because I just wanted to lament as much as we have done in the past so many years, just the magnitude of this corruption and the selfishness of the people that we have in power. Um, Taking us back a little bit to the COVID times, COVID came and shook every health system, be it in the United States, be it in Italy, across the globe. In Uganda, though, it was an opportunity for our leaders to loot as much money as they wanted in the names of supplementary budget, in the names of everything. They named it every other thing but the services that they offered. Now, a quick example, remember the tents that we were supposed to develop ICU capacity of all the regional referral hospitals, and instead we went and procured tents of 163 million each tent, costing us a total of about 3.8 billion. And the tents were supposed to be 20 of them, only 13 arrived. Few weeks later, the tents were reportedly blown away by wind. In, in whichsoever country that can happen, I'm yet to understand.
They were
Right?
blown away by what?
Our tents were blown away by wind from Nambole, and the explanation was we couldn't fix them on the turf in Nambole Stadium, so they were fixed on weak ground, and wind just came and blew away the tents. That's according to the report. Number two, we are talking about since the parliamentary exhibition started between, I think, February or early this year. Around the same time, we had just done our first organ transplant, kidney transplant at Mulago National Referral Hospital. In that very same time, the exhibition is going on, parliamentary exhibition. Ministry of Health is coming out to cry that we can no longer continue the much awaited organ transplant or transplant services for so many years, that we have done it only once, but now we don't have only 5 billion shillings, Mr. Kabushenga, to continue this organ transplant process. This is all happening in the time where people are sharing money, appreciating themselves, and saying, you need 500 million, you need 400 million to appreciate yourself. Secondly, within the same time, I've not gone far beyond, but within March, April, May, we are talking about the director of Mulago National Referral Hospital meeting the Parliamentary Committee on Health, requesting, and this is according to their report, is we have pediatric ICU in Mulago with 15 bed capacity, but only 5 beds can operate at half to 3/4 capacity. The same ICU in adults, we have about 27 bed capacity, but only 14 of them can be able to try and operate to a certain capacity. And when we talk of capacity, we only don't mean beds and equipment. We talk about staffing, the nursing, the anesthesiologists, the maintenance, the sundries, and Mulago was only requesting for 10 billion shillings, I think about 10.8 billion shillings for maintenance and consumables. Now, we are in a situation where Parliament is sharing all this money, but the nitty gritty is the little that we need within 20, I think within 4 months in 2023. We are talking about expenditure in excess of 17 billion that nobody can account for in Parliament. Now, that begs the question, where is our priority? We have all these pending issues because, I mean, Mr. Kabushenga, in your home, if you have somebody sick, anybody sick in your family, everything else stops. Every other expenditure stops. Even food becomes secondary to the health of the individual. But we
Yeah.
have a parliament that can be able to share money to appreciate themselves and donate to corporate social responsibility, but we can't get 5 billion shillings to run organ donor transplant in our facility. We can't have 10 billion shillings to operationalize our intensive care unit. We are budgeting about 286 billion to 9 regional referral hospitals, but we have over 300 billion for special drinks and foods for people in parliament. For heaven's sake, how can we even sit here and say we are functional state? Okay, and now just to leave that picture aside, the IGG report of 2021 talked about corruption costing Uganda up to about 20 trillion shillings annually. But guess our last financial year, how much our total budget is? About 72 trillion shillings. Now, if corruption alone is costing us 20 trillion shillings, that means we only have how much? About 50 trillion to
50.
operate on. How do we expect to?
Yeyo embeera nga bwe ku Twitter buli wantu wonna ku mitimbagano egy'enjawulo bannayuganda banyiivu ku ebyo ebigenda mu maaso mu nsi yaabwe. Twetaaga kulaba ku Uganda eyannamaddala, Uganda ebeesimisa okulaba nga obuli bw'enguzi buggwawo. Bino tebigenda kuggwa, byakugenda mu maaso bbanga lyonna era nga tuli bakubeerezaamu. Tugenda kulwana, tugenda kukola buli kisaanidde okukolebwa wansi w'enjuba okulaba nga ate tuggyawo bonna ababbi abali b'enguzi. Gen. Museveni atugaba bulijjo mbu ayagala nnyo okulwanyisa enguzi era mbu amakomera gagenda kujjula bali banguzi. Naye twogerera olwaleero ate amakomera galimu balwanyisa bali banguzi. Gen. Museveni musajja. Musajja n'ekintu yeewaana eno, nze saagala nguzi, ngenda kulwanyisa enguzi, ngenda kubasaba arrest you all the embezzlers, the corruptee. But when the reality comes, he arrests and detains those who are fighting corruption, who are fighting embezzlement, are the one in dock, are the one in prisons. Then the thieves are taking beers, are taking KFC. bali ku chicken tonight. Abalwandirira obuli bw'enguzi buggwewo bali makomera basavinga ebibonerezo bya kulwanyisa bali banguzi. Kati ani muli wanguzi namba moja General Kaguta Museveni. Kati no bino si byakuggwa mutaba tukyaluliko nnyo tugenda dulwana paka tunalugusa tutereze ensi yaffe fena tugiyagaliremu. Mbagala nnyo mwenna Omukama Katonda gw'ensaba kuume oyo Gulden Namugereka kitafata kumira mpeera tujja kuba tuddamu banange mweraba.